Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today felt like a good day to work indoors, so I thought I would make a self-climbing macrame hanger for this pink princess philodendron. So I've had this one, I think, for about 6 months, and it has this tiny little pole in here, and it was about that tall when I got it. And I like how kind of sculptural it is currently, but I know that if this gets any longer, it's just going to start to flop down, and I'd rather it grow up because that will give me bigger leaves, and I think in theory better variegation too. Um, so yeah, so this is the plant I'm going to be working with. And I also have an example of a self-climbing hanger that I made for this Hoya pubicalis. And I made this, I think about like 3 years ago. I'm not sure exactly, but I have like a bunch of them all over the house. And I like doing hangers like this kind of versus like a pole in a pot because I find that these are still like pretty light and movable. Like I can take this one into the shower to water it and then like the rest will kind of drip away. Like sometimes it will stain the bottom a little bit, but I don't really mind. You can also clean it. um, Anyway, so I just find that they're like a little bit handier than having like a pot with a big pole in it. And they can take like a surprising amount of weight. I've had some hangers in general, like when they're outdoors, sometimes they'll get really heavy, and also like the heat and the cold and stuff can affect them. But in my experience, the thing that gives out first is the ring. So if it's going to be indoors, I think using a wood ring is fine. But if you're doing it outside, then maybe go for like a metal one because I think it will last longer. If it falls, it's not the end of the world as well. But like I've lost a few pots, so I'd rather not. So for today's project, I would suggest having a hook of some kind, depending on how high your ceiling is. Having like a long hook can be handy because working down here is a lot less tiring than working way up here. I'm going to work pretty fast, so it will be comfortable soon, so I'm not too worried. I have a wooden ring, so this one's going to be indoors. Pink Princess Philodendron, I don't think likes going below 10 Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit, so I don't think I'll ever have this one outdoors, so I don't think this will be an issue. And then I think that this is 4 millimeter thick cord. I've used 5, and sometimes it looks like a little too chunky, and 3 looks good as well, just like kind of depends on taste. If you're using 3, I think you may need, hmm, I can't remember if it's like less or more, but the length may change slightly because your knots will be smaller. So to get the same length, you'll need more cord. So you might just have to adjust a little bit. So I have, oh, and also a pair of scissors. So when I'm measuring out the cord, I don't feel the need to be too precise because like you're working with such long lengths that it doesn't matter too much. So I know that my arm span is about 6'6", which I think is just under 2 meters. So I work with lengths of that. So I'm gonna work with 8 different cords hanging down, which is actually 4 total, but because they're folded in half, it'll be like 8. So I only need the 2 of them to be super long, and those are the ones that I'm going to use to tie knots all the way around, whereas the rest are just hanging in the middle, and I'm just going to use them at the end. So those ones don't have to be as long. So I'm going to do 3 lengths that are 4 arm spans. So for me, again, that's about 6'6". You can also work with your own proportions, find out how long yours are, and then maybe you'll adjust it. So maybe you would do like, I don't know, 4.5. So that's 1, 2, 3, and I'm actually going to do 3.5. I said 4 before. Um, So if this was 4, then about here. So once I have one length, I will cut that. So that's the length that I'm working with for the 3 middle ones. And then I need 3 total that are just that length. So using the first one as a measure. And now I'll let go of that end, fold this one over and cut it once more. Now I'm just holding on to the 2 ends. Cut that there. And then holding the ends, I have to go back and find the middle now. So that's about here. And then I can grab my hoop and then put that right around the middle, pull it through, and now I'll just hang this up here, which is where I'll be working. And I can kind of comb them out a little bit so that they're not twisted. But now I have 6 different like strands that are hanging down. And now I need my 2 really long ones, which are the ones that I'm going to knot around these ones. So these ones, there's a little bit extra to work with because we'll use these ones to kind of make the basket part where the pot will go in. And now for these ones, I want them to be, I think I'm going to go with 8, or it's just 1. I'm thinking 8 lengths, which will be like 16 meters, something like that. So it's actually like pretty long, but this is gonna, like how long it ends up being for the whole macrame is gonna depend on how long this one is. Because when this one runs out, like if I use it all and I'm only here, that means that the length that the plant can climb is only like this long. So I want to be generous enough that I can bring it down to maybe about here, which will give the plant like a lot more time to get there. Yeah. I'm just going to go with 9. 9. And just like with the first one, I need to hold on to the 2 ends and then work my way up to find the middle. Hopefully it's not too tangled. Awesome. So now I have the middle and I'll pass this through. And then I'm leaving these ones on the outside because these are the ones that I'm going to be weaving with. Now, because it's a spiral that we'll be making, all the knots are the same. So it's just going to be like the same knot over and over and over again, and the spiral will slowly just start to form itself. It's kind of hard to articulate how you have to do them. So I'm going to face the same, or like face the same direction that the camera's facing. And this is my long one that's just resting above the other 3. I'm going to take from the right hand over to the left. So I'm going across, and then I'm taking the one from my left hand and passing it under the right. And then I'm moving that to the other side, so around the back, and then I'm going to pass it through to come back in front. So now I have to pull it all the way through. And this part takes a little bit longer while it's still really long. But the more knots you make, the shorter it becomes and the quicker you can make it. So now it's basically like there's a circle around the main stem, and I slowly bring that all the way to the top until it's like nice and tight. So from the right side, bringing it in front and passing it through. Then I'm taking the left one, bringing it in front and passing it now behind. From behind, I bring it back through that front loop on the right, pass it all the way through. So now another like loop, I bring it up, and then this one rests just in front of the other one, and that eventually is what forms the spiral. Now just make sure that they're nice and tight, because if they're not, then when the weight of the pot and the plant is on here, it will actually start to create like little gaps and it'll just look a little messier. It's not a big deal, and eventually hopefully it'll be covered by the plant anyway. So yeah, don't sweat it, but I think it helps for them to be nice and tight. So right to left, loop the left one around, behind, and then through. And you can see the spiral is starting to form, and we'll just keep going. If you accidentally do it the wrong way around, like if your brain switches it around, that's like a different style of macrame, and it would be like almost like 2 parallel ribs along the edge coming all the way down, so it's kind of flatter. I feel like, I don't know, a spiral feels like it would be easier for the plant to climb, but I don't think it really makes a difference. Like the plant, both this one and the Hoya, they have aerial roots, so eventually those kind of stick themselves into the cracks between the threads, and they'll grip on. And then once they do, that's when you start to get more upright growth, the leaves get bigger, and yeah, they just look better. So it's actually the next day now because it took me quite a while to finish all of this. But now I'm at the next step. So I have the pot that I want to use, and that will be, I'll try to hang it like around this level. So what I'm going to do is have it come down on either side of the pot like that. And then once we're at the pot, I'll start to crisscross it. So I'll take 2 strands from one and 2 strands from the other and combine them, and I'll do the same on the other side. It'll make more sense as we go. So I'm basically going to use the same knot, except that now I'm going to go in both directions. So instead of being a spiral, it's going to be like a straight band, almost like a ladder instead of like a helix. So I'm just splitting it down the middle, and I'm going to go exactly the same. So right to left, and then pull that through like that. And now I'm going to do it the opposite way. So I'm going to take left to right, hook that one around, and then loop it around the back of the 2 and then through the other side. So that's what that looks like. So then right to left, a little loop around the back, and then left to right. I find it helps to actually say it each time until you kind of get the hang of it. It becomes almost kind of meditative. Sweet. So basically that. And then I'm going to continue a little further down. So maybe this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll probably take it down to maybe 24 total. So do 18 more. And then I'll do the same on the other side. And then I'll show you the next step after that. Okay, so there's 24 knots on each side, and then that will be open about like that. So then I'm going to take 2 strands from either side. So I'll take the 2 front ones and the 2 back ones. And then I'm going to kind of guess the distance that it'll have to be, but it's pretty like adjustable. So I'm only going to do 1 knot, and then I'll kind of experiment. I'll do 1 on each side and then kind of hold it up in the middle and see how it looks. And then I'll show you how to adjust it. Okay, so those are about the same. And now I can put the pot, I guess, from the bottom. So what I'm going to do is make more of these knots down to like about here. So I might go with doing like just 24 again, and we'll see how it goes. And then once I've done that on both sides, then I can connect them at the bottom. I did like a few too many. So you can see it wants to like hang down here and then like pop out. So I'm going to go back and take away 6 knots from either side. All right, so I have 18 on each side, and I'm going to take some of the longer strands from the middle and then put both of these together, and then I'm going to do 1 set of each of the same knots, so 1 in each direction. Just make sure that all the middle strands are nice and straight. And you can just like manipulate it so that these 2 stay facing each other. And then 1 the opposite direction. Okay, now I can go back in with the pot. That's how that's gonna look. So I wanted this part to be like pretty close to the pot, like on others, and I can show a picture of another one that I've made where it's like a nice long V. That can be really pretty, especially for a plant that hangs down. But because I want them to be able to climb up, some of the smaller vines are only like a foot tall. So like if the plant sits about here, then I'll be able to attach them, and then eventually they'll be able to attach themselves. So I'm just gonna go down here and then add a few more knots. Now that I know that it's the right length, I can go and secure it in place. If I were to plant the philodendron in this pot and then try to put the pot in place, it might be pretty tricky. So what I think I'll do is I will fill it up part way, and then I'll try to manipulate the plant into it and then backfill around it. And the first time I water this one, because the soil is kind of fresh, it'll likely stain the bottom a little bit. So I'll just make sure to rinse it really well. And then going forward, and especially once the roots are established, that doesn't really like happen anymore. So basically, yeah, as long as you kind of keep an eye on it in the beginning, it should be okay after. Well, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I love the contrast of the leaves against the white. And you can kind of appreciate like the red stems more now that it's like upright as well. So thanks for coming along on this like little 2-day project, and I'll catch you next time.